to repeat their performance from last phase.
Well, a question always asked, are there any rumblers? Well, we're going to have to see if there's any rumblers on Sanhok. So here we go. We're getting into the very first NPL version of this map. I'm kind of hoping it's a little bit mean. I want to see
I want to see a bloodbath. I want to see a bloodbath from start to finish.
I mean, we're getting kind of, it's an okay playing path. Nothing really crazy. Going over Paradise Resort. I mean, we've been seeing that, like, boot camp, Paradise Resort, super popular as we move through there.
Yeah, I mean, there are the hot spots that are same in the public games. Obviously, we have Bootcamp, Harteen, obviously Ruins as well. Obviously, with this Eastern plane, we are going to see a big cluster come down on the south side. Maybe not too many people stretching over to the Western Island, but the interesting thing to see now will be how the macro game adapts from these scrim games where, you know, everybody's kind of finding their feet, looking for space around the map and taking these weird early game team fights. But no surprise to me to see Genesis occupying Bootcamp. Bootcamp is like the Picardo.
I mean, really, it's the center of the map, and Genesis is there. That happens never. We've never seen that in NPL ever.
No.
I'm kind of curious, though, because I don't know if you guys heard this on the stream, but one of the teams, whenever they pressed the eject button, yelled Leroy Jenkins in unison. So I'm kind of curious on if that's going to lead to anything, but it looks like everybody's managed to kind of get their own little spot on the map. I mean, we got a little bit with Sonics and Riot Squad over each other.
All
but
three, actually. We have Tempo down there as well, over in Painan. So we do actually have Riot Squad still stretching over in parachutes, but doesn't look like there's a bit of contention. Actually, Tempo looking for this kill onto Protege, I think it is. I'm not sure what guns they've got, but doesn't look like they're going to get that early game kill for free.
Here we go. We got Ghost and Rumblers. You can see on your screen doing a little bit of looting right now, and naturally the circle was back down towards the south. So that's going to eliminate that northwestern island out. So that could lead to a couple of interesting spots, specifically that we have Quarry towards the middle of this circle. That can kind of be a, lack of a better term, a quagmire where it could slow down several of the teams there. Now, also, a lot of the popular ending points, we've got Boot Camp, but really, this looks like it's going to be a lot of hills are going to be the predominant factor inside this game.
Yeah, and the big one, which the players have actually donned Party Hill, because that's just where everybody ends up rotating towards, which is the one just outside Painan. South of Boot Camp, so
why does it not surprise me? McCoy is in cave. Of all places, all people, it does not surprise me this is going to be McCoy's thing.
But actually, surprisingly enough, just looking at the map there with the drop locations, Ghost actually having quite a lot of space, obviously south of P1E's drop spot here, but obviously the quarry area of the map is notoriously difficult to hold. You don't want to be split there. Obviously, there's lots of opportunities for teams to kind of snake in players, you know, like a 2-2 split rotating on foot. It's going to be difficult if they keep this split up.
Especially along the sides of those ridges. That's where the big problem comes into play, is there's all that growth. Whenever we look at the significant difference, whenever we're looking at how Sanhok plays out versus the other maps, it's going to be a lot of the hills and just the amount of trees and rocks that are just everywhere. And, you know, we talk about at Miramar, suddenly a team can just pop up out of nowhere. I mean, there's a lot of Jack-in-the-Box opportunities here.
Times by 10 here on Sanhok.
I mean, there could just be anyone. I wouldn't be surprised if you drive by that bridge at some point and there's going to be somebody up on top of the railings just looking around at some point through the NPL. That type of stuff can just happen.
Yeah, no, ultimately Sonic's making the decision to rotate fairly early. So trying to get their way away from Tempo Storm in Painan. Not sure that Tempo don't really need to make moves here. And again, Party Hill is the hill we can see over on the right side of the screen here. I don't think they want to be moving up there early.
What surprises me is with Tempo getting Painan. I mean, these guys tend to do trash loot strategies on a regular basis. And on this map, which kind of embraces a little bit more of trash looting, you actually get them going to a heartbeat spot.
I mean, I actually I've had the opportunity to play quite a lot with Maluk over the last couple of weeks, and I actually had a chat with him, and he was saying, you know, recently or as of late, they felt more and more so at the international events where they're just at such a disadvantage with their drop spots. Obviously being West Coast and Gakra and Erangel, and then obviously way over on the east side of the map on Miramar. So it's interesting now to see them make this decision to say, we want a more central drop location on a map that doesn't really require too much rotating. And we do see McCoy taking down Finna for the first kill on Sanhok. Just the easy pickup there onto Vanquish.
Apparently the cave pays off, so McCoy just pops out of the cave, looks around, managed to get himself a kill. So got first blood coming out, and that's going to be going down. A little bit of shots coming out from Tetra, force him back down that hillside, but no big rush. I mean, he's got cover for days in this position from them, and in the position of the circle, and naturally where he's at, since he's on that little peninsula, he doesn't have too much to worry about in that spot. But you can see Reno now making his way over, getting some vehicles. Ghost running a very interesting separated point out right now.
Yeah, and actually we got Shrimsy all the way over on this bridge. Whether or not this is trap that they've kind of rehearsed. We do have McCoy way over to the south, just kind of on a bit of high ground, kind of doing some scouting. Shrimsy over playing Bridge Troll, maybe just waiting for a team to rotate past, but it doesn't look like Vanquish now are going to take the bait and use the bridge.
We saw Reno doing something very interesting, and you see happen on this map a lot. And that's play the top of those, I guess, bushes or whatever plants you want to call them, so that way you can kind of step up into them and kind of peek around them, look through it, and it doesn't necessarily give away your same profile. Because we've talked about this in the MPL before. When you crest the top of these hills and everybody's playing different points, usually people, like as they're surveying the terrain around them, they always look towards the summit of these hills. So whenever you walk up and your profile just breaks up there, that's whenever you have bullets just raining back towards you. Leaning into playing against all the shrubbery and all the bushes and everything else that's in this map can actually be a very big benefit.
Yeah, and actually the way that the high ground plays out on this, I mean, no teams are going to be stacked up, so you've got to worry about over-peaking. Obviously, you're peeking from the high ground, but there's just so many angles to worry about, especially with the terrain being very, very dense. Obviously, there's hills right next to other hills and lots of elevation. Like you said already, the rocks and the bush formations can cause absolute nightmares for teams.
Also, one of the things I'm going to keep an eye on is how teams handle the rotations on this map. Whenever we have that river that's running through and essentially creates the 3 islands, you're going to cause a lot more rotation difficulties depending on how you go through. Naturally, we have a very nice circle with this first one, already cutting out one of the islands, but a couple of shots coming out from Shrimsy just saying, hey, I see you, don't peek your head out from that window anymore. So getting a little bit more control, but again, Ghost Gaming playing more aggressive than we have seen them in the first couple of rounds, it feels like. Oh, Nerf!
Yeah, Lazarus actually trying to push into Genesis there. Nerf getting the opening knock onto Alo. So this is interesting. Lazarus coming all the way into boot camp, which they must know that Genesis occupies. So I'm not sure why Alo's over here on his own, pushing his compound on foot.
Well, it's interesting because the rest of his team, Nerf has Genesis back behind them right now. Really, Lazarus had the inside track onto that. I want to say it almost feels like they're having to adapt based off of the circle. Whenever you're in boot camp, you kind of always expect to get circle first, right? And you're not expecting to have to potentially rotate early. Lazarus throwing off their game just a touch, loses Alo inside of this, and now you can see Genesis is just trying to figure out, like, okay, is there a push? Anybody coming for this? Anybody going for the outside angles?
And we do actually on the minimap, if you see, we do have E United coming over to the hill south of boot camp as well. Uncivil maybe getting a few tags off, doesn't actually get any damage on Profi. I'm not sure they're in a position to even help Alo right now. Actually, Microfire gets some revenge onto Valley. Actually, we're seeing SSG get wiped to 16th
eliminated
there.
Just right then and there, runs right into the Rumblers, and I gotta say, Space Station Gaming just disappears.
That was insane. Obviously, Microfire getting the opening knock there, a bit of vengeance play onto Valier, but wow, that shut down quickly. Cherry Pop is picking up 3 kills already.
Baja committed to the run over. I believe it was Baja that just takes down Waldo and runs him over inside the buggy, so gets something out of it. But here we go. This is where Sanhok is starting to kick off just a little bit. As you can see, Tempo Storm gets one of their members down, but a little bit of back and forth now as they do have Vanquish that's right next to them. And up towards the north of it, I believe that is Riot Squad.
Yeah, and actually, obviously, Vanquish already being down one member. Obviously, Tempo Storm, they're going to be a team that have kept note of the kill feed, so they're going to know that Vanquish are only 3. Whether or not they choose to get aggressive here, they don't really have a reason to. Riot Squad coming over on the side. I'm not sure if Tempo Storm are aware whether Riot Squad have actually, I was going to say, have they taken any shots? They do get an opening knock onto Zampa.
All right, here we go. We got the replay. I want to watch what happens here. Nice, beautiful shot. Starts that off. Gets the knock off the motorcycle, and then it is just a cascade failure that comes out for Space Station Gaming.
Yeah, that's, I mean, surprising to see, but again, they were rotating so tightly as a group that unfortunately it was just I guess a bad pathing choice on SSG's part.
We talk about there could be people anywhere, as you can see.
There is, yeah.
That's how it gets started sometimes. Now, you can see Vanquish still just kind of looking around down to just the 2 members. VZ's looking back over towards Tempo Storm, but they've got defense on multiple angles, seem to be very aware of where the aggression is going to be coming from, and look at how quickly, once that information is relayed over, everybody spins back around on it for Tempo Storm.
Actually, they've got a really good pinch here. Actually, Maluk stuck in between VZ and Mystery, I think, over on the flank there. VZ does actually manage to get the flush on. Sharp shot with an opening knock back onto Mystery. He does get the flush, so that shuts down the flank. This now gives opportunity for Tempo Storm to regroup.
Well, we also have Vanquish that's on the other side of this that was originally shooting at Tempo Storm. Now looking back, they saw Riot Squad being a little bit aggressive, takes shots at them and forces them back. Now, this comes back down to target prioritization. You have to assume if you're Vanquish that, hey, that's all of Tempo Storm. They've been there for a while. I mean, you can go for the shots back over towards Riot Squad, but really they could have almost kind of assisted you at a certain point if you'd let them kind of cross back down on that hillside a little bit.
Yeah, and again, this is where the decision making is going to be really interesting on Sanhok. Where are the points at which teams choose to be aggressive and how quickly they can reset from that? Because there's always going to be another team that's going to be close enough to hear these gunshots and have the opportunity to take high ground and capitalize on that.
It almost becomes a target prioritization is such a big factor inside of this. Sometimes you actually want to kind of corral other teams into specific points, so that way you can get control over it. Naturally, right now we have Tempo Storm that is hunkered down. They do have themselves a train piece, but you can see just with the nature of how this map plays, everybody is flanking around to all these different positions. Genesis is walking right up next to Endemic, but going to go ahead and use those rocks, those hillside, by a little bit more cover.
Yeah, no, actually it looks like Endemic were perfectly aware of that. From the minimap, you could see that 3 of Endemic are actually just watching Genesis rotate past them there, but I mean, this is actually a tricky situation for Endemic, honestly. The fact that Genesis aren't in a compound, they've got all of this space on the terrain, they can just wrap this compound.
I love that we're already seeing this. Genesis is going ahead and grabbing hold of those rocks, climbing up onto them. That's a big factor inside of it. It breaks different expectations on where you could be firing from and can get you a little bit of extra free damage. Yeah, look at where
Something's crossfire placement. He's looking at the halfway down the rock. He's not going to expect the angle coming down from the top of that rock. So I love the creativity that this map is going to bring. Obviously, Genesis is one of the teams I think is going to excel at that.
Now, Genesis still looking around. You got to be careful about getting bogged down in fights, though, in Sanhok, because you have to assume that at any given time, something could be just coming after you at any given stage. So that's why everybody's just trying to get control over territory. Circle pops. We're still staying back over towards that eastern part of the map. So now you can see really just Ghost is going to have to move. We've got Tempo Storm, Vanquish back over there. And naturally we do have Genesis going to have to move just a touch.
And this is what I was just saying. Actually, Genesis being in the position they are, playing the terrain on the hill, now with the circle shift, look at Endemic. They have to come out of this compound. And now the fact that Genesis just have the opportunity to spread out, find all of these different angles is going to make it really difficult for Endemic to come out.
It almost feels like buildings on this map are their own form and trap. You feel like there's some safety there, but all these guys that are on foot and moving through all the lowlands and using the hills, they're going to be able to get those inside tracks on these guys that wait just a little bit longer inside of these safer, quote-unquote, buildings.
Yeah, and when we talk about Genesis being a great team that's... a team that's great, foot rotating and taking these fights in terrain. The way that they play Edge is this map plays to their strengths, ultimately. They're really comfortable doing this play style on other maps, and now, you know, where the compounds kind of get eliminated in terms of strength, it really does help. K-Mine, great knock onto Wolf there. Looking like Endemic are actually going to try and push all the way up onto K-Mine. So Profi now, we're going to see him flank round to the west and try and get a bonus knock here to open this fight.
It looks like Endemic was just trying to separate out away from this and not going to allow it. Something does get the down onto Profi, so K-Mine's under a little bit more pressure in this position.
Reload getting a return knock as well.
Yeah, so H-Win's down as well. Nice plays coming up from Endemic, being very aware of how the rotation could come into play, but they just can't find the follow-up lines for it. Profi's by himself. They're just saying, okay, we know that the res has to be potentially happening, so who's going to be going for it? Do we get aggressive at this stage?
Moody actually getting a knock onto Reload. That's huge for Genesis.
Tempo Storm steps up. Sharky's taking a couple of shots back over towards, but look at the Shuru's taking a little bit of damage as well.
And actually, yeah, Taylor J taking one of the fights away. Crispy actually, getting 2 knocks onto Genesis here. So this is actually falling apart for Genesis right now.
I think Nerf is just trying to run away from this. Sonics is on the outside of this, and there you go. It's going to be William takes him down. Genesis just gets pincered between 2 different teams. They thought that they had the advantage towards Endemic, but no, it's going to be Sonics that was on the hunt for them, so they've got their first kill. Now, how is Sonics going to capitalize off of this? Looks like they were trying to get that inside track back over there. Meanwhile, is something trying to go for the res zone to reload?
I mean, this is great. I want to see Sonics now adopt the same thing that we should have seen Genesis execute a bit better and now put a stranglehold on the edge of this circle. The blue's still moving in, but it's coming very, very slowly. So Sonics do have time to set up on this. Endemic ultimately have time to get the reses off, but I want to see Sonics control this hill now.
And this comes back to the big factor with this map. You always have to be assuming the third party is going to be big. We see that in all competitive PUBG. But on this map specifically, it almost feels like you always need a guy just surveying what's going on around you to make sure every single time you take a shot, somebody isn't just sneaking up back behind a vulnerable point.
Yeah, you need one player at least to call when you need to swing away from a team fight, because we saw Sonics effectively just rotate straight behind Genesis there, and they were tied up.
Look at Crispier. Everybody down here from Endemic is drawing a lot of sight lines, a lot of attention back over towards it. But Crispier was trying to make the push onto the side of this. A little bit of damage is coming through, but it's going to be right on the edge of the blue. Tiggleton just got a smidgen of life. Endemic is just clinging down in these rocks, just trying to move between them. Meanwhile, you can see Maluk looking back over towards E United, making the push around this. Balefrost got the grenade ready, but it's going to be a couple of shots that actually draw his attention away, and he gets dropped down. Maluk has to be very careful not to run back over where that grenade is tossed. He does go down. Good shots coming out from Shuru.
And actually, yes, shutting down Maluk there as he was about to throw the nade as well. Actually, yes, Sharky going down as well from a third party from Ghost. Tempo going out in 14th place. That's a big shock to me.
He's got something. Looking back over towards Sonics. He's the last man alive for Endemic right now, but there's a lot of damage that has been done to Sonics. Wooly still playing the top side of this hill. Both of these teams are going to have to move, and Lazarus is already in position to start making their way back down towards where Envy is at. So there's a lot of battling to be had for whoever survives this. Looks like Wooly's just going to go ahead and opt to run over the moment that something looks away and go for the res.
They're going to be pushed for time here. We've got 3 seconds until the circle actually starts moving again. I don't think he's going to have an opportunity to get a med off. So this is going to be interesting now as Sonic's just moving in the open. Low HP.
Oh, right on the edge of that. He was taking a little bit of tick damage off of it. But I think that the trees are actually denying something sightline off of this since he was looking back up on this hill from his position. Now we can see Sonic's on the move back over here towards it. And I believe we're going to have to see how something wants to handle this as he's got Lazarus looking back over towards him. You've got to be careful jumping down those, man.
I mean, it's actually interesting. Sonic's now swinging back round to the part of the map they were at initially. Tickleton actually knocking himself to fallen. Uh-oh.
Now we've got Wildcard looking back over towards the Rumbler. He's going to go ahead and Pintalol finish off Microfry there, looking back on the angles for this. Endemic does get eliminated as Rumblers throwing up the grenade there. Could roll back down and got to be very, very cautious with that. Wildcard's wanting to push up, but look at Los's position. He has a nice little divot that he can play off of there. He's just listening for footsteps, seeing how we're going to see them move out. Meanwhile, Wildcard can just lob grenades down this hillside.
Yeah, and actually Los getting a good angle to kickstart there. I want to see Los try and actually get involved in this fight, get an opening knock. This nade looks good. It could be landed onto the tree. Oh, actually, yeah, kickstart backing off there. So Wildcard now pinned onto this rock. I want to see Rumblers spread and try and get some more angles here.
Rumblers still need to make their way inside the safe zone, so I think that's what they're opting to try to do at the time. Meanwhile, Wildcard aware of where they're going to be going for that, so just trying to get the position for them to deny as much as they can. So Wildcard's posted up a couple of shots now coming out to the side of them, but they do have the cover that they can work with. They have to be very, very cautious, though, because if they commit this too much and everybody focuses on the 2 from Rumblers that are still sitting here, they could be vulnerable from a flank.
I mean, this is the good thing. Rumblers actually have a small corner of the circle to play here. I mean, they're probably just going to bite out, wait to see this next circle. Now, obviously, identify the Wildcard have to move. Zenith now become, you know, the big factor in this team fight.
So we've got a lot of damaged teams up towards the northern part of the circle. They're going to have to make their way back down off this. We can see right now, this is where we've been watching. Don't forget on the other side of that, we've got Envy that's been kind of gatekeeping out in their position as well. So Rumblers, what are you going to do at this stage? Cherry Poppins already just kind of crossed off, getting a little bit extra distance, but it seems like Pintalo knows exactly where he is.
Yeah, I think this now just becomes a waiting game. Which team wants to kind of rotate first? Obviously, Rumblers have to move before Wildcard. They have a bit more of a buffer to the edge of the circle. It's going to be difficult for either of them.
He's pushing back over towards them. Ooh. He was trying to sneak up on top of them.
Got shot down by Zenith. And Zenith with that third party.
Out. That is so big. Wildcard was not expecting that.
No, and actually, you see now Wildcard swing all the way back around. They see that in the kill feed, and they're like, okay, another team can see Rumblers, so we need to be aware of this.
It means the fact that they are aware that they're vulnerable as well. Cherry Poppins, the last survivor. Meanwhile, back down to Corey.
This nade. This nade could be huge.
This could be big. It's going to bounce away. Going to get a little bit of damage, and there we go. That's going to be Shrew going down. Taylor J walks back into that same firing range. Leia's going to follow it up, get another down. We talked about Corey is a very dangerous place to fight around. There's so many little dips and divots. As you can see, all these rocks are just separated out everywhere.
I mean, this is huge, actually, for the last member of Riot Squad to be up and picking up 2 kill points at this point in the game. Absolutely massive play from Later here.
Throwing out the smokes. Got to be very cautious. Belfrost seems to be very aware of where he's at. The smoke's actually going to go back over towards Belfrost. He's already holding the angle for it. Leta's trying to get a couple of shots back over towards it. Got to be so cautious on this. Keep in mind, Leta is not inside the safe zone. He needs to move forward just a little bit. This blue is going to be encroaching right up next to him. So how is he going to opt into playing this? Going around the other side of it. Going to pull a juke off, but there's another team that's waiting for it. You can see Player One Esports has the angle, and Leta does manage to find himself a little bit of a push right on the edge of the circle.
Yeah, and actually, this is huge because Ghost actually, you can see on the minimap, McCoy looking over this way, they want a third party this. So it's important now that United reset and don't fully focus on this last member of Riot Squad and Quarry.
So Ghost sitting on 3 kills right now, starting to move into what looks to be the party of the map right now, as they've got Loki off of one side of him, United after losing a couple off of one side, and also Zenith. So that's who they're taking the shots at right now, trying to rotate through. But Ghost is going to have to push through Loki in order to make it into the circle.
Yeah, and actually, Loki been fairly quiet over at this compound. Ghost, unfortunately, in a better position. I talked about this earlier. The terrain play outside of these compounds is sometimes a lot stronger, but Loki backed into a position where they just have to play inside the compound.
Well, you can see some of them are just laying down. Like, you can see
Yeah.
Big over there. That's not a lot of information gathering to be had. You're just listening for footsteps at this point. So Drassel's going to go ahead and pre-nade just to be safe. Go ahead and use the Molotovs. Not a bad idea inside of this map by a little bit more space, but with the way Loki is positioned out, Pax is looking back through there. That smoke's going to be really big. Buy them a little bit more reposition space. So Ghost slowly creeping through this, and it looks like they're just going to go ahead and get this building for free.
Yeah, and actually the problem now with all 4 members of Ghost being in the same building, they are very prone to obviously nades coming in.
That nade gave away that somebody's right next to him, so Ghost has to keep an eye out. Meanwhile, Leda, Balefrost still in their fight over here. Balefrost taking a lot of damage. That's going to be Leda getting another down. He is just surviving with everything he's got over there. He's going to be playing across the blue. That's going to be a lot of damage. Can you make it back inside there? And narrowly, he does. No, don't take any more damage. No!
Great work from Leda, though. Honestly, picking up those kill points is absolutely huge for his team being the last solo alive. I mean, you can't ask for much more than that.
I mean, position, kills. He was fighting tooth and nail for it. Get a little bit of a replay on what happened to Wildcard with the repositions off to the side of this. A couple of shots coming out as, again, Envy was just going for a little bit of a skirmish off to the side of it, but they also got into some surprise help inside of this fight.
Yeah, and it ended up being, Cherry Poppins actually taken down one of Wildcard before they got eliminated. So, again, Cherry, the last member alive on his team, picking up a kill point. That's a big play from him.
Oh, Lazarus is Luke. Right down below. Player One Esports right now. He hears the fight. Nobody from Player One Esports is looking at this angle. Luke has himself a great gun for close range fighting. Now it depends on when he decides to pounce. The circle is not here, so he knows at some point he's gonna have to make a move, and there's a squad right next to him.
Yeah, it's important to note here whether or not Luke has the awareness of what team this is. He's actually gonna be tanking blue. This is gonna hurt a lot, actually.
This feels like it's too slow. He's going to look back over there and realize he's taking too much damage. Now he's just going to have to creep up right back behind him. He's letting them defend him right now, but you can't stop, buddy. You got to keep moving because you cannot let that blue continue to touch you.
This is a bad spot for Luke to be in. Now,
walks right up next to him, sprays him down, does not hear the footsteps. Now Luke realizes he has to go loud and he has to go in charge. That's already one flush down, looking back over towards another one. Seeing if anybody from Player One Esports is going to take the shot. He's taking so much damage from the blue, though. Can he get anything out of it? He's back outside the blue again and tries to rush ahead of it, but goes down.
I mean, that was a huge 2 knocks there from Luke. Unfortunately, not being able to get the down onto D-Trees. I mean, you can't ask for much more than that, but he did tank a lot of blue damage there. Backed himself into a corner effectively.
Player One Esports had the numbers at the stage of the game. With Luke coming up there, that really buys a lot more space for teams like Ghost Gaming. Sitting on 7 kills right now. They've got themselves a nice position. They've got that check that they can play with a little bit of higher sight lines on top of this. But you can see everybody's cresting, moving along the sides of these hills. Nobody wants to step back over onto it, so let's listen in to Ghost Gaming's comms.
Wait, I'm boosting up, I'm boosting up.
Popping energy as well.
We don't know how many up. Maybe we wait till fight. I think it's a 3v3. Is that guy to our north? He knocked one.
He knocked one.
I'm looking. He's on this rock to the north of me.
Okay.
Right in front of you.
He's gonna be on the northwest team.
Killed him.
Nice.
We should push up.
Let's hold that close right now.
On the right side. I need a heal,
We have done. We can chill a little bit.
They have one knock right now.
So P1 needs to
They should be rest by now.
Okay.
Yeah, it should be a 3v3, I think. I'm running out to zone in a bush.
You are? Okay. I'm playing aggro on this hill still.
Okay, he died. Watch right side. 3v2, 3v2.
Right in front of me, 325.
I'm ping. Yep.
Nade coming in.
He has a VSS, hit him once. I'm moving up left a little bit. One right side.
Nice.
That's his right side, that's his own.
Rock probably. Rock or tree.
No, not rock. Tree.
I'm
pushing left. Flashbang. I think he's at this tree. I'm flashing again.
Play together.
I don't see him at the tree, McCoy.
I don't see him either. Nice job.
Nice
job. Good job, Vegas.
Doesn't seem either, but then does. So with this, Ghost Gaming racks up 10 kills, get themselves a round victory. And then there is the normal scream of victory coming out from